Hi, this is Teresa. Glad you joined us today. We're going to continue our series on the committed marriage. The topic that we're going to specifically talk about today is putting the joy back in your marriage or keeping the joy in your marriage, whichever is the case. The first thing we want to discuss is attitude. Some people think we don't have control over our attitude, but we do. We have control over it. We may have had a bad day. Things might not have gone great, or it could be something more serious. But we can make the choice to deal with it, work through it, and try to not let our anger or our sadness flow over to those that we love. We can try to do the best we can to have a good attitude. The next thing that I wanted to talk about was resentment. Sometimes we hold grudges. Sometimes we may have already forgiven someone for something, but we continue to bring it up, or we continue to let it bother us. So if it's something that's been dealt with, put in the past, then leave it in the past. Also, if it's something new that's bothering you, it's really not a good idea to not talk about it and share it and try to work it out, because it can grow into that big ball of anger, which is not very healthy for the joy in your marriage. So another thing I wanted to discuss was blame. We don't want to play the blame game. Sometimes we look at who is wrong instead of what is wrong. It's very beneficial to try to figure out what the problem is and not who did this and who did that, but how can we work around this, and let's look at the issue, put our heads together and figure out a solution for it. Another thing is keeping score. We don't want to keep score because honestly, we usually don't keep score of the good things our spouse does, but it's very easy to keep score of the negative things or the things that upset us. So it's not a good thing to do that and say things like, well, how many times are you going to do this? Or, since last week you have done da-da-da and da-da-da. That does not create very much joy either. So let's think about not keeping score with the bad things. It might be good to keep score of the good things and to acknowledge that. Another thing is your future. It's really healthy to plan your future together and see what your goals are and know what each of you have to do to reach those goals. It gives you something in common, something positive to look to. The next group of things we're going to talk about is called the 3 A's. In the 3 A's, the first one is appreciation. It's a really good practice to let our spouse know how much we appreciate them. And it's important to be specific. Just saying, I really appreciate you being so kind. I really appreciate that you take care of us. It's a good thing to be specific, like, oh, I'm so thankful that you fixed that door, or I'm so thankful that you help around the house. I'm so thankful because it saves me so much time, and I just appreciate your attitude. You're always trying to be the best person you can be for us, and I really appreciate it. So being specific is a really good way to do that, because that's a huge need from our spouse. They need to know that we appreciate them. The other A is acknowledgement. Sometimes we kind of don't totally acknowledge someone's feelings. Let's say that something is bothering your spouse, or he's concerned about something, or worried about something, or she's worried. It's a good thing to share in that with them and ask about it and be supportive and let them know that you're sorry that happened, whether you agree that they should be worried or not. It's good to let them know that you feel for them and you're there for them. An example of that would be if a 3-year-old fell down and skinned his knee. A lot of the time we might just say, oh, okay, you're all right, get up and go play. Well, sure, he's okay, but a little TLC would be good, to just pick him up and say, I am so sorry that happened to you. Let me look at it. oh, okay, well, let's put a Band-Aid and take care of it, and then you can go play and things, it'll be okay. So that's a little more of acknowledgement of what's going on in their mind, because that can really weigh heavy on people when they don't have someone to support them. The other A is acceptance. You know, sometimes we have to accept people for who they are. Yes, sometimes they have little quirks that drive us crazy, but they've always had those little quirks. And sometimes those were the very things that attracted you to them. So to be cautious to accept our spouses for who they are. Maybe they're not someone who likes to dress up every day, and you would like for them to. Maybe there's someone who does like to, and it drives you crazy. Just know that's who they are and accept it. And if you can be accepting of their ways, it helps them to be more accepting of your ways. The next thing that I would also like to talk about in acceptance is that when we do accept them as they are, it lets them know that we have an unconditional love for them. And unconditional love is the best love there is. So let's try to remember that when we think about acceptance. The next one is commitment. Commitment is, it's a covenant. It's intended to be an unbreakable bond. And marriage is intended to be an unbreakable bond. So being committed is very important. There's a saying that commitment is the mortar that holds the stones of marriage in place. I think that's a pretty good description of commitment. One way to do this is to make sure your spouse and your marriage is high priority. They're at the top of your list. And protect your relationship from the attraction to others. This is a really important thing. And when you use the tools that we talk about in these videos, that really takes care of that issue. Also, working on your future together, making goals, figuring out what each one of you are required to do to meet the goals, and working together as a team. It gives you something to look forward to. There is a quote that says, successful couples take the raw materials of marriage, the good and the bad, that they bring together as persons, and they create their own lasting and unique bond. I think that really describes a good marriage. You take each of your qualities, you put them together, and you come up with a whole new person. And that is the two of you in marriage. So I hope that you enjoyed these tips today. And I hope that you will always remember to put God first and then your family. And this will be very beneficial to keeping the joy in your marriage or putting it back into your marriage. So I hope that you enjoyed the video and that you'll push the like button. And it would be great if you would subscribe so that you know when new videos are coming out.